You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear 2 students called Peter and Jim talking about sharing a house together. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm here about the room.
Hi, I'm Peter. We talked on the phone, didn't we? Come on in.
Great. I just need to find out a few things before I make up my mind.
Jim is here to find out about a room, so room has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hi, I'm Jim. I'm here about the room.
Hi, I'm Peter. We talked on the phone, didn't we? Come on in.
Great. I just need to find out a few things before I make up my mind.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I wasn't quite clear about the rent.
It depends on the room you have. I have the large bedroom, so I pay $110 a week. Yours is $80 because it's a bit smaller.
That's not too bad. The last place I was in was $100 a week and it was much smaller. And it seems like a good location.
Yeah, and the shops are pretty close. The only thing is, it's not very good for public transport. The nearest bus stop is quite a walk.
That's not a problem. I've got a car. By the way, is there anywhere I can park?
Well, you're lucky because this house has a garage. At the moment, there are some empty boxes in there, but there's still plenty of room for your car. You can't park in the street, it's zoned no parking, and the back lane is too narrow.
Fine. Now, what about phone calls? I didn't see a phone in the hall when I came in. I've got a mobile which my friends usually call me on, but a phone in the house is useful.
Yeah, it's in the kitchen. It was in the living room, but it was hard to hear over the television. Oh, and we pay for our own calls.
That's fair enough. And what about my room?
Yes, we'll go up and look in a minute. It's at the front of the house. It's a nice room and there's a cupboard and desk in there already. But it does get quite cold at night in that room and it doesn't have a heater.
No problem. My friend has just given me one, so I'll bring that. He's gone travelling and has left me with a big box of things to mind. Anything else I can bring?
Well, we've just got a microwave and my mother bought me a rice cooker, but it would be great if you had a toaster. Mine's just broken.
I'll have a look in the box.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
One thing, I'm a keen sports fan and I usually watch the game on TV on Friday evening. Would that be okay?
Me too, so that's good.
And I work at the supermarket on Tuesday and Thursday nights.
Great. You can do the shopping then. Do you have most of your lectures in the morning or afternoon?
In the afternoons, why?
Mine are in the afternoons too. You could give me a lift. We can share the petrol.
Good idea. When do you think I could move in?
Well, if you're interested and the rent is okay, I need someone by the 1st of June when the new rent period starts.
Yes, that should be fine. The house seems big enough, the rent's reasonable. I've got an exam next week, so I'll move in after that if that's okay.
Yeah, that sounds fine.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2 on page 3. Section 2. You will hear a teacher giving a talk about a junior school to a group of parents. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 17 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 17. Okay, can everybody hear me? Good. Well, I'd like to welcome all the new parents to Springdown Junior School. My name is Anne Rawson, and I'm the assistant head teacher. What I'd like to do is tell you about the school day and show you round the school. And perhaps you can ask me any questions you may have at the end. Right. First of all, let me start by telling you a little bit about what happens here and what's on offer. Children are expected to arrive at school between 8:45 and 8:50, and the bell is rung for everybody to go to their classrooms at 8:55 so that we can take the register. We then have assembly at 9 o'clock, when the whole school meets in the hall for the head to talk to the children. He may discuss what's happened in the news or something that is important for the school. Lessons run until 4 p.m. with an hour for lunch. Lunch is served in the canteen, and children can bring their own packed lunch or a hot meal is available. They also have time to play outside and get some fresh air. In the middle of the morning and the middle of the afternoon, there are 2 breaks of 15 minutes when the children also generally go outside, unless it's wet. Now, we encourage the children to do as much as they can, and we offer them several ways of achieving this. For example, on Thursday afternoons, rather than continuing with lessons, we expect the whole school to do sports. We vary these between summer and winter, and everything is supervised by the teachers. Also, we like the children to work on something artistic over a long period of time. So for each of the 3 terms, they are expected to produce a poster. This will normally be on something particular that they have studied that term, such as the environment. We also make sure we keep a close eye on how each child is doing in their schoolwork, and every month, rather than the teacher giving the children a report, as I know some schools do, they have to do tests, and we record their performance over the year. We're very proud of our school and of the very good results we achieve. Our teachers are all very committed to the school, and at the end of the school day, Many of them have set up clubs that the children go to for an extra hour to learn a new skill, such as music. Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 18 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 18 to 20. Okay, I'll quickly show you where everything is. We're here at the main entrance, and on the right, where you would normally expect to find reception, you'll see the head's office. He likes to see visitors personally, and his door is always open. Opposite this are 2 of the classrooms, but most of the classrooms are down the long corridor. The library, then, is situated between those 2 classrooms, and we are hoping that we will be able to create a computer room within that so that the children can have somewhere quiet to work on their own. On the left of the classrooms, we have converted one of the old cloakrooms to create a music room, and children can go in there at lunchtime if they want to. Now, if you come with me through the main hall here. Okay, now, as you can probably see, this main hall is a new addition this year, and we are very pleased with it. We used to be squashed into the old assembly hall next door, which, as you can see, has now been turned into a gym for the children, and we have weekly lessons here. Do feel free to go and look round the classrooms, and I'll be waiting here to answer your questions. That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3 on page 5. Section 3. You will hear 2 students called Jen and Rob discussing a project they are about to start working on. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Rob. We need to look at this project we're doing together in forensic linguistics.
Sure. The first thing we have to do is define forensic linguistics. I thought we could say something like, linguistics involves the analysis of language, and forensic refers to using scientific techniques to solve crimes. So forensic linguistics involves analysing people's use of language to find out whether they've committed a crime. What do you think of that as a definition?
Sounds okay. I looked it up in my dictionary and I got something similar.
Then we can add something about what forensic linguists actually do to back it up. You know, like analysing documents to find out who wrote them.
Good point. Let's do that. What about the actual project? I'm glad we chose voice identification as the topic.
Yeah, we've been given a voice recording of a possible suspect, Not a real suspect, of course. So we've got to listen to the recording and analyse their voice. Should be okay?
Well, I've already listened to the recording, and I can't even tell if it's a man or a woman. But I guess that doesn't matter. The accent's a local one, though I'm not sure how that will affect anything. Where we're really going to get in trouble is that the recording is very unclear. I'm sure they've done that to test us.
Well, they weren't going to make it easy. We have to analyse the voice sample with that spectrograph instrument, don't we? Learning what to do with it is the only thing that really concerns me about this project.
It'll be fine.
I guess so. And then we have to interview the suspect and make our own recording face-to-face and decide if it's the same person as on the original recording, right?
Yes, it's not an exact science, but it's usually pretty accurate. You can often tell, even when they've got a cold, it's the same person, but they might do something like speaking with another accent because the tutor suggests they do that just to test us.
So let's get on with it then. Oh, and don't start your usual self-doubt about whether you can do the work or not. You usually do okay in the end. I reckon that as long as we focus on the main points of the assignment, we can think about the finer details later. My problem is creating things to worry about before I've even started.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
We'll have to do some background reading first. I'll go to the library later and get what we need.
Okay. I've already looked at forensics today, and it didn't say much about voice identification, so we needn't bother with that one. Language and crime looks a bit more promising, doesn't it? I've got that out of the library already, so we don't need to worry about borrowing that.
Research methods in forensic linguistics. I guess we ought to borrow that. And voice identification will be a useful one. I'll borrow that from our classmate George. He won't need it for his project. But we should get out modern forensic techniques. We need all the help we can get on that subject.
Okay, that's that sorted out. Now on to the practical stuff. I'm not sure about how we're going to record the voices. I'm not too good on the technical side of things.
Me neither. We'd better work out what we're doing. At least we get more than one opportunity to speak to the person playing the suspect. I just hope whoever it is won't make the task too tricky.
I'm sure they won't be too hard on us. And as long as we do our research properly, it shouldn't be too hard to do the rest of it. I'm more worried about fitting in the writing up.
I know. We've got loads of other assignments to finish as well. Now, Rob, let's decide how we're going to split the writing between us. Are you any good at introductions? They always seem to let me down.
Okay, leave that to me. Are you okay to do the literature review then?
Maybe we should split that part. I don't mind writing the methodology section if you feel comfortable doing the discussion and conclusions.
Okay, and we can do the analysis between us as well. Great, let's get started.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 7. Section 4. You will hear a biology lecture on how living things deal with changes in their environment by entering a state called dormancy. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40 on page 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
We've been talking about some ways in which plants and animals deal with changes in their environment. And today we'll continue that discussion by looking at dormancy. First, we'll cover what dormancy is and why organisms become dormant. Dormancy is a state of inactivity that organisms or living things enter when they need to conserve the resources available to them and reduce their demands on their environment. Most major groups of plants and animals have some representatives that can become dormant. So what is the value of dormancy? To start with, animals that have the ability to become dormant can survive conditions which are stressful in environmental terms. For instance, when lakes, ponds, or rivers dry up, aquatic organisms that have the ability to enter dormancy can survive the drought, while others that cannot do this will die. Another advantage is that creatures that can become dormant in very inhospitable conditions, such as extreme cold, can live in a larger range of places than other organisms. And because of this, because they can live in places where other animals can't survive, when they are actually active and looking for food, the amount of competition they have to deal with from other creatures is greatly reduced. Let's move on to look at what causes dormancy. There are a number of variables, but the ones that are the most significant are changes in temperature and the amount of light organisms get. Availability of food, water, and oxygen is also very important. Now we'll explore some specific examples. Let us first look at dormancy in insects. Insects can experience a reduction in their metabolism, which is a form of dormancy called diapause. In insects, diapause is either a reaction to difficult environmental conditions or a necessary part of the life cycle, such as with butterflies or certain moths. In terms of environment, it's interesting to note that through dormancy, insects can survive when it's very cold. Another creature we'll look at is fish. Fish share the same main environmental causes for dormancy as other creatures. But as one might imagine, they are particularly sensitive to drought. Let's take the African lungfish as an example. When the water supply is low, the African lungfish burrows deep into the mud. It surrounds itself with a cocoon of slime and remains inactive. While dormant, it faces two dangers. One is the possibility of starvation, and to overcome this, it relies on fat it has stored up in its body. The other is desiccation, or drying up, which is addressed through a reduction in the production of urine. Snails are also known to become dormant. Some snails seal off their shell with a membrane of dried mucus after settling at their place of dormancy. Other snails do not have this possibility. They trust the protection of their shell. Snails that remain outside during their dormancy can usually be recognized by a rather brightly colored shell, reflecting the sunlight, and so minimizing evaporation. That is why in open habitats, banded snails usually have a yellow shell. Probably the most well-known type of dormancy is hibernation, which occurs in warm-blooded creatures during the winter. We know that warm-blooded animals maintain a regular body temperature. So what's really interesting about hibernators, true hibernators that is they can actually adapt to extreme conditions by turning off their internal thermostat, so to speak, and hibernating until conditions improve. Let's examine the behavior of a true hibernator, the Arctic ground squirrel. This squirrel digs underground and builds a nest that is insulated. Once in its nest, it curls up into a ball and tucks in its arms, legs, and tail. Its body temperature mirrors the cold of its surroundings. At this point, the squirrel barely breathes and doesn't react to stimulus in a normal way. During this period of hibernation, the squirrel loses nearly 40% of its weight. The process of awakening for the Arctic ground squirrel takes about 3 hours. When this happens, there is a rapid rise in the heartbeat and circulation is affected. The area around the heart warms more quickly than the rest of the animal. And despite the strain of hibernation, within 24 hours of coming out of it, the squirrel's body processes are basically normal.
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.